most welcome our participants to the 12th webinar of our Banking and Financial Services Awareness Month webinar series. You are most welcome to Your Money Can. Our theme is Your Money Can. We are saying be money smart. We are also saying that Sente Yo Sobola. We want you to get in touch with us via various media channels. We're on Twitter, #YourMoneyCan. We also have a web portal, which is www.yourmoneycan.or.ug. We want us to engage and get talking, take the discussion further, because at the end of the day, we want to be money smart. Ronald Mugwanya is my name, and I'll be your moderator for this webinar. The Banking and Financial Services Awareness Month is a month-long project or campaign, like you hear the word Awareness Month, and the campaign is brought to you by the Uganda Institute of Banking and Financial Services in collaboration with a number of partners. Just to mention the partners, we have Bank of Uganda, FSDU, Financial Sector Deepening Uganda. We have Summit Consulting. We have Uganda Insurers Association and the Uganda Bankers Association. These are our key strategic partners in the campaign, without whom it would be really difficult to get the campaign to you. We have multiple collaborators. Sorry, we have a platinum sponsor, and this is Bank of Africa, Uganda. We thank you so much, Bank of Africa, for the effort that you put in to make sure that we get the campaign out to the people. We have multiple sponsors or multiple partners who are a majority of the commercial banks within the industry or within Uganda's financial services sector. And I want to mention each one of them because they're doing a great deal of a job. We have Finca Bank, we have Equity, we have Pride Microfinance, DTB, Yugford Microfinance, Stanbic Bank, Opportunity, ABSA, Housing Finance Bank, EcoBank, KCB, Bank of Baroda, EFC Uganda, Bank of India, Black Bank Uganda, and Centenary Bank. These are the key collaborating partners to make sure that we get the campaign delivered to the people. In this webinar, or in our 12th webinar, the topic we are discussing is the impact of digital payment systems on day-to-day business operations. We are all aware we are going digital, and many financial institutions are boasting of how they are able to cut costs and expand their reach just by adopting digital channels. We also increasingly hearing talk about fintech. So that's part of the topic that we are here to discuss today, the impact of digital payment systems on day-to-day business operations. Now, briefly, we know increasingly that new technologies have already simplified or even smoothened out business to business and business to customer experiences with mobile payments, with e-wallets, and also contactless cards. That is the expression of digital payments as it is. Providers of digital payments or digital payment channels are increasingly under pressure to offer peer-to-peer services that facilitate a cashless society that can enable any purchases irrespective of the nature of these purchases or even the geographical location. People can purchase merchandise from wherever in the world that merchandise may be, or from wherever in the world that they may be located. Now, the advancements in technology and also digital finance are also creating both challenges as well as opportunities. These opportunities and challenges for the merchants, for the processors of the cards, or for the people who are doing the back-end processes, also users up and down the transaction path. There are challenges for us users, for the processors, and everyone within the ecosystem. Now, that's what actually brings us to the 12th webinar of our Banking and Financial Services Awareness Month webinar series, to discuss the opportunities as well as the challenges that are presented by the digital payment systems or advancements in digital finance. Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by Peter Kawumi, the country general manager for Interswitch East Africa, to discuss the topic, as I've mentioned it, the impact of digital payment systems on day-to-day business operations. Now, kindly allow me to introduce Peter by reading a brief profile of who actually Peter is, and also to try to bring the point home of the fact that we are bringing, or we are, in the midst of an expert in the field of digital finance. Peter's career spans over a dozen years, with roles in technology, in business analysis, and retail banking, including leading the digital finance departments in regional and local banks. Peter has extensive experience in developing and commercializing products, new customer acquisition, digital channel utilization, and scaling plans in consumer services. In his current role as country general manager at Interswitch East Africa Uganda Limited, Peter is championing the use of technology to deliver responsive and responsible financial services to varied market segments, including youth, women, and small businesses. And it's at this point, really, Peter, that I would love to emphasize on the point of financial inclusion, because we're talking about, almost, we are bringing on board the entire ecosystem of the financial services and the kind of people that we want to bring on board: women, youth, and the small businesses that are in many cases relegated to third-party players when it comes to financial services. Peter is also a Microsoft certified systems engineer with a Bachelor of Science honors degree in software engineering from Kingston University, and a Master of Business Administration, MBA, with distinction from Edinburgh Business School. Peter serves on boards of New Vision, non-executive director, as well as the leadership team, still non-executive director, and the FinTech Association of Uganda. He's the board chair, actually. Ladies and gentlemen, that is briefly to introduce our panelist. For details regarding our topic, he's going to take us through the nitty-gritties. I want to welcome Peter. Peter, please, you're most welcome. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Ronald. And thank you for the very, very warm and kind welcome. Before I get into it, I'd just like to start by thanking the participants for taking the time out this afternoon to join us for this webinar and to come and listen to me as I share my thoughts on this topic. Secondly, I'd also like to thank the Institute, firstly for inviting Interswitch to share our thoughts, but also more importantly to congratulate you for the progress that you have been making over the last few days. I can only imagine that it has been quite tough the last few weeks, but I have no doubt that not just our industry, but also the different market players, the different consumers of financial services will greatly benefit from this session. Ronald, if it's okay, I'd like to just share my screen now.
It's okay, Peter, not a problem. You are now running the show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, just let me know when you can see my screen, and then I'll carry on.
Peter, the screen is visible now. It's live.
Thank you very much. So when I was invited to speak, I was asked to speak on the impact of digital payment systems on the day-to-day business operations. My presentation will be brief because I know that many of the participants may have questions or will want to interact in one way or another. So I'll try to keep the presentation brief, and to the point, and just highlight a few things here and there, and then we can have enough time to discuss it further. I will start with a brief introduction, first of the FinTech Association, because as Ronald said in the introductions, I also currently chair the FinTech Association, or the Financial Technology Service Providers Association, FITSPA, here in Uganda. And then I will also just spend a few minutes speaking about the InterSwitch group and the InterSwitch business here in Uganda, and the progress we have made and what we do. And then I will go into the topic of today, where we'll discuss, what is digital payments, how is the landscape changing, and why are small businesses, why are businesses, even large businesses, why are banks interested in these digital payments area, and what is happening, and why should you be interested in it, and why should you care about it. So briefly, the FinTech Association, FITSPA, is a member-owned national FinTech association which represents key players and small startups here in Uganda in the FinTech space. So currently we have about 120 members, and they range from multinationals to startups that essentially got registered just a few weeks ago. So we have operations that are centered on three key things. Number one is community. So we bring together various parts of the community to encourage open dialogue, collaboration, and co-creation. So on one day you can have a large MNO talking to us about how they use customer data and things of that nature. And another day you can have a very small FinTech sharing with us about how some of the challenges that they're facing as they grow their business. So it's a very collaborative space that we are building, and one of the reasons that the Institute asked us to speak today is really based on this, because they know that we're building a community that aims to speak with one voice. The second pillar is on innovation. So we learn from one another and are keen to address some of the pain points faced by Africa, and of course with the focus on Uganda. So what we do is spend a lot of time learning about different principles, things like risk management, things like compliance, which is very key for us now as the regulation is being released, etc. So we spend a lot of time learning from one another about what works and what doesn't. The third pillar is advocacy. So we work to create a unified voice for fintechs within the Ugandan and East African markets on areas around policy, regulation, and other related issues. One of the key things that is happening in Uganda is that there is a National Payment Systems Act that was passed in July that was assented to in July by the President, and the regulations are currently being drafted by Bank of Uganda. So collaboratively and working together with other fintechs in the country, we are actually providing our thoughts to what that regulation should look like and how it should progress. It's a very intense exercise, but one that I believe will help to stimulate innovation, but also ensure that consumers are protected. So FITSPA is a founding member of the Africa FinTech Network, and we are very, very active in that role. And currently we have MOUs with the Central Bank, the Communications Commission, the National IT Authority, the Bankers Association, and of course with the Institute of Banking and Financial Services. We also have partnerships and collaboration initiatives with the Financial Sector Deepening, the United Nations Capital Development Fund, the International Trade Center, etc., etc. The reason I wanted to speak about this first is just to ensure that everybody knows that fintechs are working together to ensure that the payment space is much stronger. even as the regulation is coming into play, we are working with the central bank and other regulators to make sure that we are fully compliant and can ensure that consumers, businesses, large corporates, and our banking partners are properly secure as these transactions grow. I'll now spend a few minutes just speaking about the InterSwitch Group. We have been in place since 2002, so we're nearly 20 years old. And over that period, the company has transitioned quite sharply from a transaction switching company, which we were in 2002. In around 2012, we were a fintech company. And today, we describe ourselves as a digital payment and commerce company. I say this because, and I'll show in the next few slides about how the transition is happening even within the Ugandan environment. Today, InterSwitch is serving consumers and our banking partners in 23 countries on the continent. So we have full offices in Nigeria, where we're headquartered, in Ghana, in Kenya, and in Uganda. And we also have development offices in Germany, in Belarus, and in India. So we're growing quite quickly, and we'll be very, very close and very soon to being able to serve all the needs of all our banking partners. We believe in an Africa where payment is a seamless part of everyday life. And Ronald was earlier speaking about financial inclusion and making sure that everybody can be covered under the financial umbrella. So we believe our vision is an Africa where payment is a seamless part of everyday life. And we believe that we will achieve this vision by creating transaction solutions that enable both individuals and communities in Africa to prosper. And in Uganda, we have so far done a great job doing this. So today, many of you on this call will know InterSwitch for the interoperability solution that we provide through the ATMs. We also provide agency banking solutions for three of the big banks here in Uganda. We've got an agent network of our own called QuickTeller, where we partner with small businesses to essentially help them make their capital do more. So today, this agent network is at about 7,500. Admittedly, most of them are still in the central region, but we're actively growing this network within the eastern, northern, and western regions. So typically, what a small business is able to do is to do things like bill payments, mobile money, airtime, etc., leveraging InterSwitch's connections to all of these utilities and service providers, and therefore earn a commission for these transactions. We're seeing a lot of interest from small businesses in doing this. We also have our own card scheme called Verve. So you may know some of the international card schemes like Visa, MasterCard, etc. We have our own card scheme that is an Africa card, but to international standards. So it's an EMV card that essentially is priced and built for the African market. Today in Uganda, we have about 5 banks that are issuing this card and about 120,000 customers, Ugandans, enjoying the benefits of using this card. We have started to deliver all our services across multiple delivery channels and across multiple devices. So as I said, we do ATMs, point of sales. We have most recently rolled out an internet payment gateway that allows small businesses to sell their merchandise online. We have mobile solutions we can do for kiosks, etc. So we are growing quite rapidly, even within Uganda, simply because of the efficiency of the services that we are offering. And I'm happy to note that many of the banks and many of our other ecosystem partners are giving us very positive feedback about what we are delivering to this market. So I'll now go into the topic for today. How is the digital landscape changing, and what can businesses and banks do to make sure they are positioning themselves right for this change? And I'll start from the point of a small business. So the journey of a small business, of growing a small business, hasn't changed much in the last 100 years. You start with developing a business concept. You potentially have to register it somewhere, do some product development, maybe come up with some budgets, look for some financing. As you grow, you have to look for a team, do some sales and marketing to make sure that you build your revenues, potentially grow your market, and then see different growth, maybe either vertically or horizontally grow that business. So these steps might change depending on the country, the jurisdiction, the level of financing you have, etc. But these are the general steps that a business will take as it seeks maturity and as it seeks growth. But the important thing is how it has been changing over the last 10 years. So previously, if for example you wanted to register your company, you had to physically walk to company registry. You probably had to spend 3 or 4 days waiting for these registration documents to be completed. You needed to look for a lawyer, etc., etc. We have seen that change quite significantly over the last few years. Today, in many countries across the world, including here in Africa, what's happening is the facilities to do online registration are quickly gaining popularity. There is an index that is used every year that is called, I think it's called the Ease of Doing Business ratings. And Rwanda always scores quite highly on this one, simply because they quite a few years ago took their company registration into the digital space. So today, I believe in Rwanda, you can fully register a company and get confirmation in under 3 hours. But also the other things around the development of a small business are changing. So for example, budgeting used to be a case of, you sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and start writing your plans and writing your budgets. That has changed quite significantly. Today, there are very many apps. Of course, you can use things like Excel, but there are also apps that are developed to support you both on an individual basis, but also for businesses in the entire budgeting process. I think one of the things that has changed the very most is financing. In the past, you used to, make sure you had a very strong business case, approach the bank, had to open the bank account, which could potentially take a week, have a very detailed proposal to them about how you wanted to get the funding, make sure that you have a mortgage set up, so put up your house, put up your land, etc., to raise the funds for running your business. Today, that has changed quite significantly. Of course, you still require a very strong business case. You still require proposals. However, what has changed is the amount that is available, but also the channels of raising capital. So what I'm talking about is things like venture capital, angel investment, etc. Things like crowdfunding. So today, many small businesses are raising money from strangers. So you log onto one of these crowdfunding platforms, and you put your proposal. Say, I want to start a business. I'm rearing chicken, and this is what I believe I can bring to the table, and these are the returns that you can get. And then essentially, very many people put money together and finance your business idea. I think that is one of the very unique type of financing that is quite new, has not quite picked up on the African continent yet, but is certainly coming. One that has picked up and is of interest to people in the payment sector is the venture capital funding. So for the last maybe 3 or 4 years, over $100 million of funding is coming into the payment space within the East African space every year. This is exciting for us. And as the Ugandan fintech players, we see this as a great opportunity for us to strengthen the fintech space and strengthen our ability to attract that capital so that we can create the jobs, so that we can build more innovative solutions for people in this country. In the past, building a team meant that you had to do interviews face-to-face. You had to, when you are drawing up contracts for your staff, it had to be 8 to 5 in the office or 8 to 6 in the office, etc. Many people think working from this, there's a huge push towards working remotely. There's a huge push towards using freelancers, especially with software development projects, and we are going to see this stick even within our jurisdictions. So here in Uganda, COVID has pushed the working from home phenomenon quite significantly, but our expectation is that this is going to stick. Of course, the markets that you're addressing these days has also changed. I think Ronald mentioned it in his opening remarks about competing on a global level. So in the past, when you had a small business, you were thinking about the Ugandan market, or at most maybe the East African market. Today, as a small business, you are thinking about competition, but also most importantly, opportunity for growth into other markets. So whether your business sells gweke, or it sells soap, or it sells anything, your market is potentially a global market. So that what has changed, and this shift is driving revenues for early developers. So the shift to doing things online is driving revenues for people who saw this shift, and industries who saw the shift happening early and adopted. So these graphs are from a survey that was carried out by the United Nations Capital Development Fund, right in the midst of the COVID pandemic. And what they noted was that, so if you look at the green and the purple circles here, what they noticed is the industries that had adopted technology and had taken their solutions online into the digital space turned out to be to do quite well, even in the midst of COVID. So, of course, the ICT industry had adopted, and of course, the financial services industry. So we've seen banks doing a lot of mobile banking, a lot of agency banking, etc. So those industries that had adopted technology and provided digital solutions for their consumers and for their customers did okay. It's not great, but they were able to transition and however, there are industries that had not quite adopted technology, and you'll see that here that there were revenue losers, and one that I've picked out here is the retail and wholesale trade industries, simply because of how fast they drive the economy, or what contribution they have to the Ugandan economy. So because they hadn't shifted their solutions to the online space, they really struggled. I mean, of course, another one was accommodation, catering, etc. Those might be a bit difficult to shift to the digital space. But what are we seeing that's happening within the digital space, even here in Uganda? So At the start, I mentioned that InterSwitch has transitioned. It's not only InterSwitch that has transitioned, also very many other players have transitioned over the last few years. So between 2005 and 2013, what we saw was most of the payment providers were mostly giving business to business services and enabling supervised financial institutions, banks, and the others to essentially deliver services to their customers. So what I'm talking about is things like delivering ATM switching services, delivering very basic mobile services. Towards the end of this period, we saw the entry of mobile money, which shifted the goalposts quite significantly. And what that presented was an avenue for FinTech 2.0, which in Uganda has largely been between 2013 and 2018. And we saw very many new players leverage the rails of mobile money to start to develop and innovate and grow their businesses. So we saw an emergence of B2C players, so business to customer players who are focused on leveraging mobile money to improve different sectors. So you may recognize some of these names. So for example, FutureLink Technologies, which does a lot of work with SACCOs, Phoenix, which does a lot of work in the solar sector, SafeBorder, which I'm sure needs no introduction, Jumo, which does a lot of micro credit lending, and of course, towards the end of this period as well, we saw the launch of the agency banking regulations, which has driven the adoption of agency banking by several of the banks in the Ugandan market. A few things on security were done. So the central bank required for banks to move towards the EMV or chip and pin standards, and that has driven greater security within payment space. Today we are in a time that we are referring to as FinTech 3.0, where we are seeing FinTech players offering a full array of financial services and non-financial services. So we are seeing very many players shift from just providing a payment service to doing things in health, things in ride hailing, things around music, things around marketplaces, etc. You may have noticed or you may have heard that the Data Protection and Privacy Act was passed. So that's the DPPA. It was passed last year. The regulations are either out or just about to be out. And what this provides is for players within the sector to essentially take care of information and data that they collect from their consumers. At the beginning of this presentation, I talked about the National Payment Systems Act and its regulations that are nearly out as well, that will essentially bring FinTech players under the ambit of the Central Bank of Uganda and allow them to be properly supervised by the Central Bank. So digital payments providers are responding, the regulators are responding to the changes and needs of the consumers. And this response is largely driven because there is a lot of adoption and disruption, and it's happening right across multiple industry sectors. So for example, I mentioned SafeBorder, who are now shifting from just ride hailing to doing very many other things with their wallet. In the past, people, consumers used to walk to ATMs primarily to get their cash. I barely know anyone these days who doesn't have either a mobile money wallet or some sort of other wallet. And then during COVID, of course, we all noticed the shift of people from going to the market and using a lot of online vendors for their shopping. There were a few statistics that I noted over the last 6 months. According to the Daily Monitor, the volume and value of transactions driven on point-of-sale machines So the devices that are in restaurants and cafes, etc., that accept cards, has risen significantly during the last 6 months. And despite the slowdown, digital payment services have enabled the continuity of business. So I've talked about small businesses that are adopting, and I've spoken about even market vendors that have moved to this online this online space. Excuse me. So according to a pilot that was carried out by the UN, more than 3,000 market vendors from 7 markets were enrolled onto online platforms like Jumia to sell their goods during the April to September period of this year. Now, the real question here is it going to stick when the pandemic goes away? Have customer preferences changed enough, and does it give enough value for the suppliers, for example, for market vendors, to continue making sure that they sell their wares online? Fintechs are not the only ones that are responding. Banks are also responding. Insurance companies are also responding. And what they're doing can be classified into 4 different things. The first, 4 different buckets. The first is many of them are building partnerships. So many of them are opening up their infrastructure to these new fintech players to integrate and drive innovation. We've seen an excellent example on agency banking rollouts where banks have partnered with several fintechs, including InterSwitch, to roll out their agency banking platforms. We've seen excellent examples on mobile banking, where banks have partnered with several different fintechs to do things like bank to wallet and wallet to bank transactions. This is exciting for us because it provides opportunity for us to innovate and to work with banks that have a huge number of consumers. Many banks are also reinventing themselves and leveraging these new technologies to change their operating models. Over the last 24 months or so, we have actually noted that there's 2 banks in this market that are very, very actively adopting digital first strategies. So what are they doing? They're closing branches and pushing their digital products more aggressively and supporting their consumers to adopt and to adapt to the new reality. This is very, very interesting because these banks have essentially noted that the future is going to be in the digital space. And in order for them to compete, they have to be as relevant and as competent to provide these digital services as possible. The third option is the acquisition, and we've seen very many banks be very interested in what the fintechs are doing, even in this market. There are a few recent examples, even on the continent, where banks have bought fintechs or bought into fintechs and are essentially either acquiring or merging with the fintechs to capture the synergies of innovation and drive scale by leveraging their customer bases. Of course, the fourth one is to compete, either by opening up fintechs of their own or delivering solutions that are similar or competing with fintechs. Now, these 4 options are open to all the banks. And Ronald, I included this slide because it's extremely important for us not to just look at the demand side, i.e. consumers, i.e. small businesses, but also important to note what is the supply side, what are banks doing about these shifts in technology and the new perceptions and expectations of their consumers. So I just wanted to note here that banks are actually responding, and they're responding in various ways. So you may be asking yourself, so what are the benefits as a small business, as an individual? What are the benefits of accepting digital payments, and why is this thing of interest? What should I be? What should I know, and what should I be doing? The first and obvious benefit is you want to reach more customers. So Uganda has a very, very young population. Africa at wide has a young population. Within the next 10 years, 7 million additional new people will have entered the consumer market for financial services. So for financial and retail services. So there is a huge opportunity for banks and businesses that are looking to capture new markets, new markets and new consumer potential by essentially accepting digital payments. Of course, one must also note that these young people are often going to be using cards, they're going to be using wallets, they're going to be using QR codes, etc., for their payments. So if you want to be able to serve these customers, if you want to remain relevant to the consumers of the future, you must start very, very actively and proactively thinking about digital payments. Of course, if you're reaching more customers, you will sell more. So the retail sales revenue of the future is going to be driven by retail payments. In Uganda, it is estimated that e-commerce will amount to about $400 million by 2024. Now, this number may have dropped slightly because of the pandemic, but I believe we shall be very, very close to that figure. So as a business, what you need to be asking yourself is, do I want to tap into this $400 million of e-commerce, or am I comfortable for it to be taken by my competition and by others? Importantly, you also want to meet your customers where they are. So if your customers are potentially online, if your customers are using wallets and online marketplaces, as a business, you want to meet them where they are. So accepting digital payments, ensuring that you are ready to accept and adopt to this digital space will certainly allow you to meet this changing consumer demand. This is extremely important for some industries more than others. So during my introduction, Ronald mentioned that I also currently sit on the board of the Vision Group. And the media industry is one that is changing significantly. Very many people today may not be buying the hard copies of newspapers. Very many people today may be getting their news off WhatsApp, Facebook, and other social media platforms, and are essentially shifting their preferences to other channels. As a business, so Vision Group is quite big, but as a business, if you're small, if you're a medium-sized business, you also need to be thinking about, how do I prepare myself for this new normal? So there may be concerns around security as you shift towards accepting digital payments. However, many of today's e-commerce solutions incorporate payment security at their heart to ensure protection against data breach and data fraud. And of course, there's also supportive regulation to this effect. Earlier, I mentioned the Data Protection and Privacy Act in Uganda. And it must be noted that Uganda is one of the first African countries to have a DPPA. So there are measures in place and policies, national policies to protect you against data breach and against fraud. However, as a business, you also need to be curious about Are your e-commerce solution providers aware, and are they adopting some of these policies, and are they adopting some of these measures to make sure that when your consumers come and use your services to make payments, they're doing it in a safe environment. As a business owner, you want to drive productivity, so you want to make sure that you're automating as many as possible business processes as possible. Shifting to e-commerce, just like any other technology, saves a lot of time and effort, and often eliminates some manual tasks, especially around things like managing customer disputes, processing invoices, etc. There are some solutions often linked to payment gateways that support things like elimination of any paper invoices, that support things like ensuring that all your invoices and things like that are kept digital, and you can keep track of them. Lastly, it's generally cheaper to process digital payments than handling cash, because there's limited risk of inaccuracies due to cash handling. There's limited risk of theft. There's some risk of fraud, but as I said earlier, once you're aware about how to mitigate some of these risks, then you are about halfway there to being successful in the digital space. So my last slide, Ronald, is going to cover some practical questions on what businesses that want to adopt these digital payments might be asking themselves. Okay. So the very first is, what payments do I want to accept in my business? So there are various types of digital payments that might be of open options for you. So there's things like debit cards, so Visa, Valve, MasterCard, etc. There's mobile money. There are other wallets that are growing quite quickly in the Ugandan market. So you're asking yourself, what sort of payments do I want? Because if you know what sort of payment you want to accept, then it often guides a lot of the decisions that you make. And it's important to know what sort of questions to ask yourself. So, for example, if you're in a business that sells, if you work at Pine and you're in a business that sells cars, or a business that sells things in excess of maybe 20 million shillings, generally, you're not going to want to accept mobile money, because wallets will accept up to 7 or 5 million shillings. You also, so if you're in a business that's selling things like furniture, then things like accepting of cards might be of interest to you, because if you want to drive revenue by attracting more sales, you want to be able to add different payment types to your store, to your business. So that is the question. That's do I generally have micro or do I have large payments? Because this will generally drive what type of payments you want to accept. Importantly, you have to think about your customer experience. So you have to think about, how will this affect the in-store or the online experience of my customers? So do I want my customers to be inconvenienced, or do I want them to have a lot of convenience? And how do I make sure that this is the case? The second area that you might want to think about as a business is, what do I need to do to accept these payments? How long will it take to set up, and how much will it cost? So if, for example, you're accepting cards, what you will require is a point of sale device. If you're accepting mobile money or wallets, what you're going to require is things like a SIM card, a phone, QR codes, etc. You also generally need to have a bank account. If you're not generally, you need to have a bank account if you're accepting card payments. And if you're accepting wallet, mobile money, things like mobile money, you have to have some sort of collection account so that you can get paid, or you can get settled by the bank or by the telecom. All of these services attract some fees. Generally, they're called merchant service commissions, or collection account fees. And in Uganda, currently the merchant service commissions for card acceptance is about 3 to 3.5% averagely, and for collection accounts is at about 2%. So as a business, you would pay about 2% to accept mobile money. So 2% would be paid to either the telco or to the service providers, like InterSwitch, or as a merchant, in order to accept card payments, you would pay 3 to 3.5% to the bank or to your provider of the point of sale device. So you have to have that in mind, and you need to understand your costs, how long it will take to set up, and what you need to accept these payments. Thirdly, what will this payment solution integrate to my other business operations? So I spoke earlier about ensuring convenience and ensuring that there's continuity in your business. So you want to ask your questions like, how does this fit into my accounting program? How does it fit into my ERP solution? Will it support my inventory management processes? How will I train my staff to use these new payment solutions? And will it improve customer experience? See, I keep repeating customer experience, because I appreciate that with the changing perception, with the changing nature of customers, and with increased competition globally, you have to make sure that your customer experience is top-notch, and you have to make sure that you can serve as many customers as possible. Lastly, you want to keep your business secure. So you'll need to ask your questions around what types of security does this payment solution offer. So AVS is not common in sub-Saharan Africa because of the issues we have around addressing systems. However, very many providers are now providing solutions around fraud screening. So they're doing things like checking whether a card has been used multiple times on the same platform. They're checking whether limits have been breached, etc. And then there are techniques to ensure that as a business, you're protecting yourself from chargebacks. Chargebacks are essentially requests for money back when a card or a wallet has been used and the owner of the card or the wallet says that they did not do a transaction. So as a business, you don't ever want to experience a chargeback. So there are methods that you need to know to minimize the potential of chargebacks. And of course, anybody who has used an ATM knows about how to safely keep their PIN. That is also used on point of sales and on some online systems. Essentially, as a small business, you want to ensure that you're staying safe and as you serve your customers. Ronald, I will stop there. I realize I've now spoken for quite a few minutes, so I will stop there because as I said at the start, I really want this session to be interactive, and I want to allow enough time for the Q&A. If any of the attendees or participants would like to get in touch with me, these are my details. Feel free to write either to myself or to the association whose contact details are here at the bottom. But I thank you once again and welcome any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you indeed for the wonderful presentation and for the amount of effort that you put into compile such insightful, insightful presentation. We really appreciate. For me, really, you've talked about a number of things, but the thing which has caught my mind is that the drive to digital is, the drive to digital is driving revenue for early adopters. The people who, embrace digital fast are really making it big. And the examples are everywhere in the lives that we live in our communities. And, there's proof for everyone to see. When you talk about companies like Jumia, people can talk about companies like Safe Border, Tugende, Chiku, these are becoming, part of, common brands within the communities where we live. Thank you indeed, Peter. And I know people within the audience have taken note of this. I'm really sure that for all of us on call now, have some kind of interest in furthering the cause of digital payments. We want to learn more. And it's at that point that I want to invite my colleague Derek here to, share with us the poll. We want to test the waters. We want to feel like, what does it really mean to say digital? What do people think, and where do we stand in terms of our digital awareness? The poll is already appearing on our screens. Kindly just tick the boxes which apply to you, and when you're done, you can share with us. While we do return the poll, I also want to engage with the participants on call. What's your experience? What have you learned from Peter's presentation? Because at the end of the day, we want people to take lessons. We are aiming at behavior change. We want to get more and more people, included in our financial services ecosystem. Say something about your lessons, what has excited you, how you feel now about digital payment systems, or probably what you felt about them before and how your mindset has shifted now. We really want to hear from you. In just about 3 minutes, everyone on call, please, you can write to us through chat. Say something about what Peter just shared with us. While you are sharing, I'm opening up chat, and I want to see what people are saying here. I have Edson Sabimana. He says it's a very good presentation. Edson is coming from Finance Trust Bank. We thank you, Edson. I hope you are taking the lessons serious, and probably you are going to become a digital person, if you are not already one. Peter, I just want to share with you a personal experience, and this just came about when you made when you shared with us the statistics from a Daily Monitor report that there is an upward trend in terms of as far as the consumption of digital payments is concerned. I once lived in a foreign country as a student, and there, digital payments are the norm. And I remember that time when we were still, small boys going out with friends and, going out to do window shopping most of the time, but we also did some bit of shopping for groceries. And especially if you are in the company of a female friend, it was actually embarrassing for you to pay cash at the till. Basically the norm was that you were supposed to swipe. And, they've got a very vibrant culture when it comes to digital payments. So it just got me worrying really that if this is what is coming to us here, then probably many young people, in their 20s, in their teenage years, will have a hard time going to the shopping malls. Yeah, that's an observation which I just,
I can guarantee that is what is coming.
Yeah. So
but I think we need to look at it more from what is the opportunity.
Yes.
Both as financial service providers,
exactly.
But also as the businesses.
Yes.
So you recall in my presentation I was talking about you will reach more people, you will be able to sell more, you will be able to minimize the risks of handling cash. So we need to think about those things more. And all our businesses.
The number of opportunities to be exploited by the business community, but coming from my experience, that time when I was a small boy, it was really a tough thing. Now we have Brian Rutemberwa. I think digital payment systems are an integral part of the digital transformation project. They're highly being adopted to catch up with the market and client needs. Probably Brian is one of the early adopters, and probably someone who is already jumped onto the trend. We have also Scovia Baweze. He says, thanks for the presentation. With digital systems, you can do more of the things at your own convenience, fastly, and it saves time. Yeah. In the meantime, these are the two, comments that are coming in from different participants on call. I hope there will be more. Please, we encourage you to talk to us. Peter has been talking to quite a number of people. He needs to get feedback that what he's been saying has actually rung a bell in people's minds. Okay, having said that, I want us now to go back to our poll results. Derek, kindly, if you share with us the poll results. Okay, there you go. The poll results. In terms of age, we've got 5% of people on call within the 15 to 25 age range. 29% are between 26 and 35. A majority of us, 49%, are within the range of 36 to 45. 17% are 46 plus. The other question we asked is, do you ever transact using digital payment systems? 100% of the people said yes. Before I proceed here, Peter, what do you have to say about this? Is this a true representation of the result, given your experience, first of all, as someone who lives within this market? Is it true that 100% of us actually transact using digital? Let's just quickly, in just 1 minute, what do you think?
I think 100% of the people on this call, and I'm not surprised to see that they use digital payment systems. I mean, the reality is many of them may have bank accounts. All of them will most likely have mobile money wallets. I think if we look at it from a Uganda as a nation perspective, these numbers might be a little bit different, especially if we're talking about, for example, digital banking services. Mobile money might be significantly higher, but digital banking services will certainly be maybe even less than 20%. So I'm not surprised to see this number here.
That's true.
And of course, it's very encouraging.
So what you're saying, Peter, is that in terms of mobile money payments, yes, but alternative channels, definitely no.
No.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
Yes.
Now, the other question is, what's your biggest worry about digital payment systems? Cybersecurity? 93% of the people say they worry about cybersecurity. I admit I'm one of those who worry about cybersecurity. Hopefully, we will get there sometime to come. Digitally illiterate, 5% people say they're digitally illiterate, and it's true. There's that phobia around computers and the digital gadgets. 5% say they prefer cash, and 7% say they prefer other means. Okay. Number 4, do you think the financial services sector should do more to publicize digital payments? The answer is 100% of all participants or all people who attempted the survey agree that we need to do more in regard to publicizing digital payments. I believe digital payments. Okay, yes, Peter.
Thank you. So yes. I know that the Bank of Uganda has had several financial literacy initiatives over the last few years. And those were largely focused on ensuring that the more traditional or the more accepted financial services were well understood. Last week, the central bank sent the fintech players a draft consumer protection regulations for the National Payment Systems Act. And in those draft regulations, and these clauses I'm sure will be passed, is an obligation to drive consumer awareness. So if you have a license from the central bank and you are a fintech, a payment systems provider of any sort, then you will have an obligation to drive consumer awareness or to have consumer awareness programs. I believe, and I fully agree with the poll results here. I believe financial services sector players need to do more to publicize digital payments. I believe that it will help to drive adoption. It will help to drive awareness of things like safety. So it will drive awareness of things in the earlier poll, in number 3, around cybersecurity. So it will drive awareness and appreciation about cybersecurity. But importantly, it will also get more people using these services. So I fully agree, and many of the players in the market are already looking to do this.
Exactly. Okay. Now, number 5. I believe digital payment systems can help me grow my business. 100% people say they agree that digital payment systems are a good step in the right direction when it comes to business growth. Then lastly, do you desire to know more about the challenges and opportunities of digital payment systems? And yes, again, 98% say they would love to get more knowledge regarding the challenges and opportunities embedded within digital payments or digital payment systems. So that's as far as our poll result is concerned. We have
Can I say something on the last one? Oh, yeah. Thank you, Ronald.
Yes. Yeah.
It seems I have very many things to say after all. So on the last point, at the start of my presentation, I mentioned that we have a memorandum of understanding with the Institute of Banking and Financial Services. As part of that memorandum, one of the things that the FinTech Association is intending to do is to essentially support the Institute to come up with different curricula and different content and to deliver this curriculum around digital payment services. What it means, how to think about products, how to think about serving consumers, etc., etc. So we're building out this curriculum, and we are going to, I think it's next year that we shall start to roll it out. It's an exciting topic. It's a very timely sector, and it's a very timely space. I think we shall start with the bankers before we roll it out to others. And I think it will certainly help build the awareness, help to build the understanding of what digital financial services means, but also help to support, build the skills that are required to think about strategies, think about adoption plans, etc. So it's exciting, and it's something that we are also working on already.
Wow, thank you so much, Peter, for the enlightenment. And it's good to mention about the partnership. That's a discussion that we would love to follow, when we are off call. Now, that's as far as the poll has been concerned. Now, briefly, Peter, we've got something like 15 minutes to the end of this call. And within that 15 minutes, I would love us to go through some questions that have been sent in from the participants. And I would love to suggest that we ask 3 at a time. Then when the 3 are out, probably we may find ourselves having space for only 3 questions, actually, in the interest of time. I'll start off with someone from chat. He's an anonymous attendee. And the question is, how can we as an industry work towards lowering the cost of transacting for merchants? Because an MSC of 3%, I hope you understand the acronym, Peter. I don't want to interpret it because I also don't understand it. I've got to be honest here.
Don't worry, Ronald, I understand it.
Yeah, probably he used technical jargon because you know you are an expert there. Right. because an MSC of 3% or a 3.5% for debit cards and 2% for is quite high, especially when process high value transactions, probably especially when you process high value transactions. What form of regulation is there to cap the MSC to encourage merchants to adopt digital payment solutions? That's number one from an anonymous attendee. Then, Peter, someone also is asking about, say, the current COVID-19 pandemic has been a disguised blessing for many tech businesses the world over, mostly in the digital finance arena. In which ways do you think Uganda's digital finance ecosystem has been impacted by the crisis, and what are the implications going forward? Those are two questions. Do you want me to bring another one, or we can end with this in the interest of time?
I'm happy to answer. Let me answer those ones.
Okay, please.
And then if there's time, we can come back.
Please, thank you.
So
over to you.
I take note of the very first question around the cost of digital payments for the merchant. During my presentation, I actually highlighted, and I think this is where the attendee is picking these figures from. I agree with you, 3.5% to accept card payments, 2% to accept mobile money payments is still quite high, especially the card payments. I think, the reason that it's important to understand why it's 3.5%. So currently, most of the cards in the market, in the Ugandan market, are issued by banks that are on international payment schemes. So I'm talking about some of the other card schemes. And often, many of these banks are having to use processors that are outside the country. So what I mean here is when you go to a merchant in Nakawa and you swipe your card, this transaction is being sent to Canada, it's being sent to Dubai, it's being sent to Singapore before it comes back to Uganda to confirm with your bank here in Uganda whether or not you have money in order to ensure that they can accept or decline the transaction. So that is what is driving the high cost. That leg of going to Canada, coming back, going back to Canada and coming back is essentially what is driving the high cost. So the key, so also related to that is some of the ATM fees. Okay, so someone may say also why are some of the ATM fees quite high? So it's a similar scenario. Some of those transactions are being sent offshore. So the Bank of Uganda has been working with the banks to address this solution because, of course, bringing down cost of financial services transactions is key to ensuring greater financial inclusion. And one of the things that the central bank has requested the banks to do is to work with switch providers locally, like InterSwitch. And in fact, this is a project that we're working on with the bankers to essentially localize these transactions so that transaction no longer has to go to Canada. It no longer has to go to Dubai or wherever. It is done here. So that a transaction from bank, from DFCU Bank, for example, comes through InterSwitch and goes to Centenary Bank. That is a local transaction that doesn't necessarily have to leave the country. I believe that if we achieve that, we can drive the 3.5% to between 1 and 1.5%. Now, what does that do? That ensures that more merchants accept digital payments, which ensures that more people are interested in using these digital payments. Now, Ronald, at the beginning, you said, how do we ensure that there's enough value? How do we ensure that people trust and know that these services are available and use them? I think cost is a major driver. And if we address this cost issue, it can certainly go a long way in driving up inclusion. The second question was on the COVID-19 pandemic and it being a blessing. I'm not sure I would ever call this pandemic a blessing because, to be fair, also the technology providers, the fintechs have struggled. Even our business at Etherswitch really struggled in the April-May period. The reality is that you have to really understand the structure of our economy.
Just briefly, Peter.
Yes.
People on the sidelines of tech tend to think that when things are this tough and everyone is in lockdown, so probably you guys in tech are actually, celebrating, and this comes comes from the fact that one of the tech giants the world over, the Amazon Corporation, made big cash during the lockdown. So we just kind of took it for granted to say that probably all tech companies are doing that good. But thanks for the correction, Peter. You can proceed.
No, we are not in the world that Amazon is in just yet. The reality is the structure of our economy is such that many of the citizens in sub-Saharan Africa, especially, spend what they earn on a daily basis. And when the lockdown hit, many people couldn't go to work, many businesses couldn't open, and as such, they were not able to earn, and therefore not able to spend. So we were really hit. However, what it has done is it has made, I believe, a critical mass of people very curious and very open to trying these services. And often when they try these services and like them, when they try these services and they work, when they try these services and they get the value that they hoped for, then that gives an opportunity for them to stick. Now, during my presentation, I referred to the readiness of different industries. And Ronald, you also highlighted this. So a very good example that I gave was the financial services sector. Many of the banks had already rolled out things like agency banking, things like mobile banking. When the pandemic hit, I personally know very many people who said, let me go and try this new channel because I can no longer access the branch. Or let me go and try this new channel because I still need to make this payment. Now, if these people have now adopted and received the services that they needed and have now realized that, hey, it's faster, it's more convenient, many times it's even cheaper, then there's a very good chance that they will stick and that they will continue to use these channels. So, and going back to your earlier point about awareness and about us as a financial services sector driving the trust and the awareness of the channels, we still have a lot to do. But I agree with on the question of yes, it has driven up awareness, it has driven up opportunities for us, but we still have a lot of work to do.
Thank you very much, Peter. Now, Peter, we only have 5 minutes into the session. However, there's something which is really important, and I think I don't want to leave the call without asking this question. And this is coming from the background of, or in the spirit of financial inclusion, because at the end of the day, we are talking about enabling business growth, and this growth should be, all round. It's not just restricted to a certain class of businesses. Now, Peter, this is me a businessman in Chikubo or a small business owner running some small business. And we've talked about digital payment systems. I've got a website, and I want to be able to get people or my clients to pay using different payment platforms, virtually online. There's PayPal, there's Visa, there's whatever, all those kind of payment systems. Now, how do I integrate these onto my web portal or on our web assets? Because this may not just be a web portal, it could be a social media site. How do we integrate payment systems onto our web resources to make sure that we get that seamlessness of transactions between our organization and our clients? Just take us briefly in very simple English, in the kind of vernacular that we could actually understand as lay people in this kind of thing. Where do we start? And just the whole process, like where do we start to that point when my client who is ordering, stuff for their family can actually pay and we receive the money in the bank account? Peter, please.
Thank you, Ronald. I think the simple answer is come to InterSwitch and we'll sort you out. But seriously, there are very many ways to think about it.
Yes.
And if you recall my slide on practical questions for businesses, what I was actually alluding to is these questions that you're asking. Where do I start? What do I, what kind of payments do I want to accept? Mobile money, card, etc. What do I do to accept these payments? Which is the question you're asking. Where do I go? How will this integrate into my business operation? So those are the questions that I was thinking from the point of view of a small business. There are, even in Uganda, some payment gateway providers who will enable you to essentially accept things like card payments, things like mobile money payments online. Now, the question is, what about if I'm not online? Can I still accept these payments? The answer is yes. Please speak to your bank or speak to your payments partner like InterSwitch. Speak to us about some of the challenges you're having on payments, and we'll be very, very happy to walk you through the process. It's not as difficult as it sounds. A lot of the heavy lifting has been done by many of your financial services partners. The key questions that you need to have answers to is, how will this affect my business and how am I preparing for it? But yes, just to answer your question, there are quite a few providers here in Uganda. And if anybody writes into you, Ronald, asking this particular question, feel free to forward that email to us, and I'll suggest a few names.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Peter. What I get as the answer is one. There are two options here. The first point of call could be the organization, the financial institution with which you transact your money. Talk to your bankers, basically. That's one. Then two, you could talk to experts like yourselves. Really. Okay. Now, with that, it's exactly 1:30. Okay. Yeah. Come in, Paul, Peter.
Sorry, I was saying that is correct.
Yeah. Okay. It's exactly 1.5 hours since we started our webinar on digital financial, on digital payment systems and how they enable business growth. And we want to say it's been really a very insightful session. We appreciate, most importantly, our participants who have given it the time, but also thank you so much, Peter, for allowing to take the time off your very busy schedule to be with us here, and not just to be with us for the sake of being with us, but sharing with us information that would have cost so much money to find, or that would have cost an organization, that still continues to cost many people money because they don't know where to find it. We appreciate that really so much. I hope we will be available the next time we invite you over. And thank you so much, InterSwitch, still, for the good work that you are doing in enabling digital payment systems. We want to thank our
just
strategic
thank you
partners.
very much also for inviting me. I'm really grateful for giving me the opportunity to speak with you.
It is a pleasure, Peter. We also want to thank very much our strategic partners, Bank of Uganda, FSDU Uganda, Summit, and the Uganda Insurers Association, as well as the Uganda Bankers Association. Platinum sponsors, Uganda Bank of Africa, Uganda, and multiple collaborators on this journey, the different financial institutions, like we have already mentioned. It's the Banking and Financial Services Awareness Month, like we have already hinted. Our objective is to drive financial inclusion across sectors within the country, across the entire demographics. Our tagline is Your Money Can, Sente Yo Sovola. We have different points of call. You can get in touch via Twitter at hashtag Your Money Can. We also have a web portal where we have so much information regarding the different pillars in financial literacy. We also have the video recordings as well as the presentations that multiple speakers have made on different webinars. So if you missed one or you attended one that you felt was really insightful and you want to go back to it, you can always reach out to www.yourmoneycan.or.ug. That's the web portal for the Your Money Can campaign. We want to thank you so much and to remind you that we still have more webinars coming, and we'll be having another one tomorrow, same time, 3 p.m. And this is going to be safety guidelines through the digital journey. And the presentation will be by Mr. Kakuru Joel Eric. Today we have discussed how digital payments can enable your business growth. Tomorrow we want to look at safety guidelines. Once again, I want to thank you so much, Peter, for your time. And from me, Ronald Mugwanya, my colleague, Derek Lubega in the back end, and the entire team at the Uganda Institute of Banking and Financial Services, we want to wish you a very good evening. Thank you for being with us.
Your money can help you achieve your dreams only when you save every time you earn. Learn how to keep part of your income to help you, your family and business manage through emergencies like COVID-19 at the Banking and Financial Services Awareness Month. Meet the financial experts. Learn how to deal with financial hardships like those caused by COVID-19, how to prepare for similar emergencies in the future, how to create an emergency account, and how to save to achieve your dreams. Be money smart. Be part of the Banking and Financial Services Awareness Month. Visit www.yourmoneycan.or.ug. Brought to you by the Uganda Institute of Banking and Financial Services, UIBFS.